A walk-in, a real walk-in, isn't a possession. It isn't a takeover of the entire body, mind, and soul in a way that you might think. And it certainly isn't a mental illness or schizophrenia. What is it? Well, this lady in the screen is going to tell you. Now, before I come to her, I want to let you know that when I met her years ago, I didn't know she was a walk-in, but I knew she was very special. I knew there was something really holy and really sacred about her, and I couldn't put my finger on it. Over these bumpy years in the disclosure field, a lot of us have gone away from each other and most of us are coming back to truth. When she withdrew her energy from my field, I felt it. Now, how many people do you know out there that you could unconsciously or consciously be aware that somebody of her level has withdrawn their energy? It really humbles me and delights me to bring to my audience, you beautiful audience, the one and only Katie Bishop. Hello, Katie. How are you, darling?
Hi, Danny. I'm wonderful. It's so great to be here with you today.
It's so good to see you. Like, we haven't been on screen together for 4 years, 4 years. I think the last time we did a round table together. But let's just go straight into what is a walk-in and how do you know you're not some nut job with a complete upset possession?
Right, right. Or a personality disorder, right?
Yes.
So my walk-in experience happened a long time ago. It happened in 2011. And I was actually part of a fleet of walk-ins that came in for the timeline convergence of 2012. We came here to flip the game, to bring our consciousness to a higher level. And it was actually kind of a strategy for assisting humanity at this time, because when you walk in, there's a complete shift in consciousness. And if you have a lot of people walking in at the same time with the mission to elevate consciousness of humanity, it really changes the whole trajectory of our timeline. And that was the goal. Now, a walk in typically is like a soul transference. So one soul is animating the body, and then it leaves, it's finished its mission, and another one comes in. Now, that is the most basic definition. There are so many different kinds of walk ins and variations and different kinds of situations. So, I really focus mostly on just sharing the information that I know from my experience. And with my experience in 2011, um, I grew up Catholic. I grew up in a very traditional household. At that time, I was a mother to young children, and I was going through therapy to heal some of my own traumas. And I went through the dark night of the soul, and I felt like I was dying. And during that time frame is when the walk-in happened, and I saw a being of light assisting with this transference. He touched my heart space, activated all my chakras and clairs. He told me I was brave, and boom, I was here. And it's an unusual walk-in situation because I was fully aware of it. Typically, walk-ins will happen during a near-death experience when the body is completely catatonic. So my experience is a little unique. But that's it in a nutshell. And I don't want to say like I own all the information on walk-ins because, like I said, there's so many different variations.
Okay, but you still remember your childhood in the youth. That's what I mean. That's the difference. It's not a complete possession takeover. It's a sharing of it. It's holding a higher consciousness for humanity, right?
Yeah, this was planned pre-incarnation. So the soul in beforehand is part of my oversoul, and how this works is it's almost like experiencing 20 years of spiritual evolution in one instance. So it is like I am very much the same person, but just a little bit more of a higher consciousness. And I have all the memories from beforehand, but they feel very distant. But they, again, same person, same oversoul, and same mission.
That's just amazing. Two other friends of mine who recognized your power, your beauty, the love, the depth in you is Alex Collier and Chris O'Connor.
Mhm. I love both of them. Yeah. I loved meeting you in 2022. I went to your first conference. That's where we met in Orlando. And it was wonderful. I was the one working with Tim in the background. We were doing all the interviews, so I got to meet everyone in
Oh
person.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, the media room. You got the journalist, the media interviewer. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So I had a little bird's eye view of everything. And unfortunately, you're right. I did have to withdraw my energy, and we're not going to go into that today. But things are different now. and I'm happy to be here sharing my truth and my information. And what's really interesting is I was ready to do this in 2022. And I was ready to come out with my book in 2022. And the guidance I received was don't. You're going to get pummeled, you're going to get run over, and it's going to be so upsetting to you, it's going to make you want to give up. And I write about some of this in the book. So I waited. I waited. And last summer, I had plans to travel, but I got guidance that, hey, it's go time. You know, get the book ready to go this fall. You need to be coming forward more. And so I canceled all my plans. I hunkered down. I finished the book. You know, it's a lot of work. And here I am sharing this truth with you today.
Incredible. Show the book to us and give us the basic premise of it, please.
Yeah, the book is called Remember Your Torch. And this is about hidden truths that shape our reality. And it's also about my own journey as a walk in soul and what I went through because it's not been an easy journey at all. So I wrote the book in three different parts. Each chapter is actually three different parts. I write it from the 3D standpoint and what I was going through as like the human experience. And then I write it from the perspective of a walk in soul. And then I write it from the experience of what does this mean for humanity? What does this mean for our planet? How can you use this information in your daily life now? I'm all about relevance with everything I do. Why is this important? Because there's too much distracting information out there. So every time I'm teaching a class or I'm giving a talk, I want to make sure that I'm honing in on what are the most relevant points for people to take with them today that they can use and ground into reality.
So
So
with
that's what the book's about. And it shares all of my experiences with the supernatural. I had some contact experiences, being what it's like to be a walk-in soul, and then some of the traumas I went through because I got so heavily targeted. I was MyLab. It took me about 10 years to really fully recover and stabilize myself. And at one point, I was fully living out of my car in a motel. I mean, I lost everything and I lost my family, all my friends. Everyone thought I was totally crazy. So again, I go through all of that, and I'm sure a lot of people out there can understand because a lot of us have been through a lot of trauma and pain when we try to bring forward some of these truths.
Oh yeah, for sure. Can you tell those that don't know what does I was my labbed mean?
Oh, my labs is this is military abductions, and there's a lot of manipulation going on with my labs. They've got extremely advanced technology that is a lot of trickery for people, and it's also very abusive. I mean, they'll cause a lot of trauma and a lot of painful abduction type scenarios, and it works on multiple levels. And I don't know if I want to go into all the details of that today. And there's a lot of people coming forward with their own MyLab abduction experiences, but mine also happened that weren't necessarily abductions where I was taken. That was happening, but it was also happening in the 3D. And again, I go into that. I don't know if I want to go into all that detail today, but it's very dark stuff. It's dark.
Yeah. Well, this is the channel to bring the worst of the worst and the best of the best. So, I understand. We'll just keep going and see where the energy kind of takes us right now. Now, you mentioned that you're teaching classes, which is beautiful. That's definitely part of your higher mission is to teach everything you know to help those on the seeker's journey, which is everybody. You are very brilliant at seeking the knowledge and sharing people the information of how to see the false light. Would you like to take us into some of that?
Yeah, it's so important. Do you want me to pull this up? Because I have it like listed out in
Yeah,
10 different signs that you can look for with the false light.
absolutely. People are hungry for that information. I know myself, I have fallen for the false light. So we all need, no matter who we think we
Yeah,
are, we all need training and lessons and teaching.
I think it's so important. And I put together a few slides on it because sometimes I think it's helpful when you actually see it, when you see like a list of these things, because a lot of people are having contact experiences and are experiencing the supernatural, and they have a lot of questions like, wait a minute, is this a manipulation? Am I making this up? Is this real? And then you can use this for speakers as well, like if you're trying to use your discernment. So these are some, I have it listed out into 10 signs to look for. um, Let me just skip some of this, we've already talked about that. So I I have this listed out and what benevolent contact actually looks like and feels like versus what is more of a manipulation or a red flag. And I've had experiences with both. I've had false light experiences. I've had experiences that have been manipulations. And then I've had experiences where it's been pure benevolent contact. And so these are some of the key things to look for. And the first one being free will. You know, a benevolent being is always going to honor your free will, whereas something that is more malevolent or manipulative is going to have an agenda for you. They're going to have a plan for you, or they're going to want you to work something out for them, or speak for them, or advertise for them, right? And benevolent contact, what it does is it pulls all of the wisdom that's already within you. It works from the inside out. Whereas something that's a manipulation, this is going to be like an external stream of data, like a data stream, kind of like AI. It's going to feel more mechanical and unnatural, and it's not going to be as organic as pulling it through your own intuition. Now, benevolent beings are going to help promote your own spiritual maturity and your spiritual journey. And they're going to help you build your integrity and understanding what that means on all the levels through and through. And they're going to help and guide you to bring unity. Whereas a malevolent being or someone that's being controlled is going to come across more superficial or more narcissistic, and it's going to create like a cult. It will be a cult-like mentality. Now, something to understand with narcissists, because we're seeing this everywhere, even in the spiritual community, you know, narcissists are actually extremely wounded people, believe it or not. That's why they behave the way they are.
Yeah.
Extremely unhealed.
Mm-hmm.
So a benevolent being or organization would never put someone that unhealed in an external facing role. That would be cruel because they'll self-destruct and they'll make a fool of themselves. So just be aware of that. If someone's very egoic or narcissistic, they're probably being controlled by something that is not benevolent. Now, benevolent beings welcome questions. In fact, they'll answer your questions with questions, right? Because they're pulling all of this wisdom from within. But someone that's being controlled by something that's more manipulative is going to be infuriated by questions. They're going to get frustrated. They're going to be angered by questions. And benevolent beings really work in the background. You know, they don't need credit. They don't need to be promoted. They don't need to be marketed or advertised. You know, they don't need to be propagated as heroes, right? That's not their nature. Their nature is to help because that's who they are. They like to be in the background, and they are trying to make us rise up and be the stars and take ownership and be sovereign in ourselves. But we see some of these galactic influencers really kind of advertising themselves and promoting themselves like, I'm the hero, I'm the one bringing all the freedom. No, this is a group effort. We're all doing it. It's not up to one person, and you don't have to advertise yourself as that. Now, benevolence also encourage open-mindedness and creativity, whereas someone who's being controlled is going to want to control the narrative with absolutes, right? They may also be attacking others a lot, and that's not high vibrational. Benevolent contact happens through soul telepathy communication, right? This is happening through the gnosis of your heart. And more low vibrational or regressive beings are going to use technology. They may use implants. And now I don't want to make an absolute with this either, because this is not to say that their information is all false. It's just that if they're using technology to communicate with a being, whether it's AI or whether it's an implant, it's a red flag, because that can be infiltrated so easily. And benevolent beings really don't communicate that way. They wouldn't use an implant to communicate with humans, because implants are transhumanism. To have a technology that you use to communicate, if it's embedded in your body, you know, that's part of the assimilation into transhumanism. So benevolents are not going to promote that to humanity at this critical time, right? Because our goal right now is to activate our natural intuitive abilities and our own self-healing and our own telepathic abilities through our soul. This is really important because we have to learn this first before we bring in the technology. Okay, because otherwise, what happens is we devolve because we become dependent on the technology. And then if the technology gets taken away, we don't know how to activate those abilities now. So this is really important to understand. Um, and benevolent contact, is gentle guidance, and they don't interfere. They just don't. So someone who's being manipulated may be corroborating information with cabal type institutions like NASA. And it's also important to understand that some of these people that are representing multiple councils or federations, and they say, well, I'm the only one for this, all these organizations. And that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Number one, it's a huge conflict of interest. And number two, there's a huge security risk with that, because if that person becomes compromised, now all these other organizations are infected. So, and there's other reasons, but those are the two most obvious ones. So it's important to be aware of that. Benevolent beings are going to honor your humility. More malevolent beings are going to play to your ego. They're going to say, oh, you can, you're a star, and they're going to put you up on a pedestal. And benevolent beings are all about radical responsibility. They're going to make you take responsibility for everything, including your thoughts, your emotions, everything. Whereas someone who's being manipulated, they're going to play the victim. They're going to blame everyone else. It's going to be the opposite. And as we ascend and as we go through our consciousness awakening, this whole victim mentality has to fall away. It is so low vibrational, and it's very toxic. So these are just some basics, and you might be thinking, well, duh, this is really obvious, and this seems like common sense. But I have to state this because there's so much deception, and there's so many truths mixed with lies, and I think it's important that we understand this for discernment. And I think this is helpful for people who are experiencing contact or supernatural phenomenon, to just kind of remind them and ground them back into, okay, some common sense things to look for.
Hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Um, so that's where that comes from. And I kind of skipped over a few things. I don't know how to make this slide go backwards. But some of the things I wanted to share with you today that are included with what I feel like is most relevant are some of the layers of our false genesis story. There's really three layers, and there's a sequence of events that happened with this false matrix generation, the whole way it was created in itself.
Mm.
And I attribute some of this to some half-truths, what I would almost consider Anunnaki propaganda versus Anunnaki reality. And then I also wanted to share a list of the controlled disclosure agenda and what they don't want you to know, and what the
Mm.
real return is about.
Brilliant. Love it.
Um, so as I mentioned before, it's always nice to know where this information is coming from. I think that's really important, because I don't just sit here and like channel information. I'm a walk-in soul. So when I walked in, again, part of the mission was bringing certain pieces forward. So I walked in with a lot of information, but not all of it. I don't know everything. I never claimed to know everything. I just like sharing what I know and what I walked in with from my own experience. And I have my energy healing practice, Earth Bishop. I named it Earth Bishop because my last name is Bishop, and it means guardian, it means protector. And I want everyone to be an Earth Bishop. I want everyone protecting humanity. I want everyone to be a guardian of our planet. And I'm an instructor of Sacred Mysteries Monthly. This is a class where I reveal more hidden truths about our reality system. And then I also have a foundation in all kinds of immersive trainings and certifications. And I did 2 levels of alchemy school in Italy, and I've done a shamanic immersion wisdom program, and I've done entity attachment release training with 2 of the best exorcists in the world. And I write about some of these experiences in my book. I also like to do my own research. So some of the information that I'm going to share today comes directly from the Enuma Elish and the Atrahasis and the Corpus Hermetica, which is a great resource for understanding the constructs of our reality. And I also love the Gnostic texts, especially the Pistis Sophia and Apocalypse for Adam are very relevant for this information for today. So I just wanted to lay that out as a guideline. Danny, do you want me to just jump into this?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So I wanted to talk about the layers of false genesis, because essentially our creation stories are really describing the creation of our false matrix enslavement. And the first layer of this is the Old Testament, Genesis story of Adam and Eve and the creation of Earth. And I'm not even going to go into why this is kind of a big fable because your audience already understands that. I'm going to mostly focus on 2 and 3 because the second layer of this is the Anunnaki portraying themselves as creators and presenting themselves as gods, when really what they are genetic manipulators and they're terraforming engineers.
Yes.
Yes, exactly.
Agreed. Yes.
And the third layer is about the prime creators, the original Earth experience before all of the inversions. And this is the original experience that was meant to be for our soul. And this is really the information that precedes the Sumerian tablets. So it's difficult to get some of this information. It's just
Yeah.
not out there. So one of the most important things to understand before I delve into this is really understanding the constructs of reality, because we know this is a matrix system and we know it's a consciousness projection system. It's an interface for our souls. And when you understand that we're talking about a consciousness immersion reality system, then everything else kind of snaps into place. And I truly believe that it's the understanding of the construct of our reality that's really more the true disclosure than anything else. And when you understand that, you can see all the distractions and you can see the looping programs and the recycled stories and the headlines. And it can be hard to see all of that because we're in it. We're immersed in the system right now. But if you're able to pull back and pull your consciousness up and out of the system and look at it, zoom out, then you can see all of the manipulations. And you can see that on the other side of this, these consciousness immersion systems, they're like conglomerate enterprises that provide different kinds of experiences. And they're not all negative experiences. We're in an inverted system right now. We're in an energy harvesting system right now, but they're not all that way. In the original Earth system, which was known as a Tiamat system, it wasn't designed that way. So what we have, these false Genesis stories in the Bible and the story of the Enuma Elish, they are creation stories of the false 3D matrix after the destruction of the Tiamat system, which was the original system without all the inversions. And so I'm going to go through a little bit of a sequence of this. I don't like to put dates on anything because none of the dates make sense.
That's right. They're all altered. Yeah.
It's so altered, and we have so much time manipulation, and it's been a temporal war. So I don't feel comfortable putting dates on anything. So I look at the sequence of events. I think that's the best way to do it. And what we really have here is this family dynasty, these warring factions of the Anunnaki, and they have this explosive war on the mother planet Tiamat. Tiamat means Lady of Life and Waters of Life. It's a mother planet. And it was taken over with nuclear war and radioactive weaponry. And this Anunnaki faction that was controlled really by Anu wanted to take control of what we know today as what are called the Tablets of Destiny and the May. It's M-E, but it's pronounced May. These are the tablets of wisdom that we hear about. These tablets, I wouldn't say that they're tablets. It's really crystal technology that's part of a control center. That's the construct. It controls the construct for the universe, and it holds creational and source coding. And what they did is they hijacked this. They hijacked this control center. Now, this knowledge and this information, these types of coding, this is meant to be bestowed upon those who have earned wisdom and proven their self with merit over lifetimes. It's not meant to be taken over with force and violence. But that's what happened. And this is all laid out in the Enuma Elish. And they use this command center to create what we know today as this false reality enslavement system by inverting source coding. And essentially what this is like a black market knockoff of a consciousness immersion program that harvests energy through consciousness trapped in an inverted matrix system. And these AI systems, these enslavement systems, they're part of what we know as this Dark Orion group enterprise. That's really who controls it and owns them. And they don't come from an organic intelligence. It's like machine intelligence. Now, one of the things we learn about with this Anunnaki invasion is that they're looking for gold. They're looking for resources. Well, that's correct and makes sense. It's also a data mining operation, right? This is a system that's harvesting information, not only from these tablets of destiny, but from the souls that they entrapped. Because our soul is metaphysical gold. It really is. Our soul is worth more than gold. So
Hmm.
we have to look at all of this multidimensionally and what's happening on all the different layers, because it's the soul that animates the energy for these systems. It's the soul that animates the body that creates the energy that gets loosed. And there were souls that were trapped on Tiamat, which we now see that sea of souls. It's called the abyss. And again, this is in the Enuma Elish if you want to go read it for yourself. In that in those tablets, those 7 tablets, they talk about a net being cast over the planet. And this net is the soul trapping net. That's essentially what that is. It's a metaphor for that. And at this time, we know that the Anunnaki had the Ajiji race. The Ajiji race was doing all the terraforming for them, reversing the grid lines, creating the infrastructure for the false matrix system. And when I talk about the false matrix system, this is where we hear in the creation stories that God created the sky and God created the earth and fashioned the stars and the firmament and the zodiac. And again, this is all about being a copycat, copying and inverting what already existed. It's laid out extremely graphically in the Enuma Elish how they use Tiamat's body parts to create this world, this false reality system. They mention the Tigris Euphrates. This is the metaphor of her tears, right, of the original mother planet. And so the Anunnaki have their Ajiji class doing all the work and all the terraforming and reversing the coding and the ley lines. And eventually, over time, this working class rebels. And we hear about this. And it's one of the wards in heaven. There's several wards in heaven. And we know when we're talking about the wards in heaven and fallen angels, we're not talking about really angelic beings, and we're not talking about heaven. We're talking about a layer of reality outside of the false matrix system, and we're talking about ETs. And I think your audience already understands all of that. Sorry. So we have the Anunnaki creating Homo sapiens sapien to replace their worker class. Now, here's the part where it gets really interesting, and everyone skips over this, and we can't skip over this because it is so important. This creation story, and this is laid out in great detail in the Atrahasis, this includes a ritual sacrifice of a lesser god of intelligence known as Welu or Geshtui or Iwela. It depends on if you're reading the Akkadian or Sumerian translation, which name. But either way, he's known as a god of wisdom. He's the one that leads the rebellion for the Ajiji. And in the Atrahasis, it explicitly explains how they do a ritual sacrifice of this being. They slaughter him in the assembly and use his flesh and blood to create the human species. We need to know this. We need to understand this. And it's also critically important to bring this forward because we see this demonic ritual blood sacrifice practice still going on today to feed the false matrix god system. This didn't come from us. This didn't come from humanity. This ritual sacrifice, this came before we were even created. Okay, it came from this Anunnaki group feeding the dark satanic matrix system that requires blood sacrifice. And we need to understand these patterns and these cycles because this is cyclical. And we need to make sure where they come from so we don't repeat them and we understand them at their source. We also need to understand this because this is part of our creation of who we are. And we don't know anything about this being that was slaughtered and killed in this ritual sacrifice that was used to create humanity. They don't want us knowing this connection. They don't want us to understand that we've replaced the Ajiji workers. They don't want their slaves to know that they're slaves, right? That hits too close to home because if we know that we're in an enslavement system, then we'll try to break out. So if we see that we're the ones that replaced the Ajiji, well, that really hits home and it kind of changes everything and it brings our realization to the next level. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that's mentioned in all the creation stories is mixing us with clay, mixing the human race with clay. And this is a metaphor for many things. Most importantly, it's a metaphor for carbon life form, because a carbon life form is much denser of a vessel. It's much more difficult to ascend spiritually with the carbon life form makeup. So I just want to say also that I'm summarizing a lot of big information and I'm just trying to
Oh,
highlight
yes.
these.
Yeah.
So I know there's probably going to be like, well, what about this? What about that? I can't put it all in one presentation.
No.
Sometimes I'll put clips of my class online and people will be like, well, this. I'm like, I know it's a 45-second clip of a 2-hour class that's part of a whole series. I have a whole library of this. So I'm
Yeah.
really today trying to condense and give you just like some of the key highlights that most people aren't sharing or talking about.
Yes.
So the Ajiji essentially, they don't really get fully freed. What happens is they're more like promoted, and they're promoted to not have to do the hard labor anymore, the hardcore data mining and gold mining. They're assigned to watch over the creation of the false matrix and make sure that humanity stays contained. And when I talk about relevance, part of why this is so relevant is because we need to pull back and see how amazing we are as a species. We were created as slaves. We have been programmed to feel unworthy. We have been programmed to think that we have no value. And this is why so many people struggle with healthy self love and always seeking to worship outside of themselves and not look within. Um, Even after being slaves for millennia, here we are bringing truth.
Hmm.
We're rebelling, we're exposing it. And I know humanity cares about each other. It's these non-human overlords that are really controlling all of this ritual sacrifice, and they're the ones that are causing all the violence, and they're really puppeteering all the destruction that we're seeing. So I want people to understand that, because we as a human race are incredible, and we've been
Hmm.
through so much, and we still are loving each other. And most of the people I see in my practice, they're frustrated with their life because they feel like they're not helping enough,
Yeah.
you know
Absolutely. Yeah.
just
Yeah.
how amazing we are. And I think it's relevant too, because I have a lot of concerns about some of these galactic influencers and the way they speak and present information. Because
Should we go back on full screen now that we've had the run
yes,
through? Thank you. Yeah, so
yeah,
people can see us and engage in
um,
our conversation. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, I feel like some of them they speak as though they're not human, and they kind of talk down to us like they have all the information, and I find it to be very condescending. And I think it shows that those people are somewhat out of touch with reality of the intervention, because the goal here is to be embracing our humanity, is to be embracing the human experience and not putting anyone on a pedestal for this, or thinking that you're better than anyone else because you're not human. This is all about being hand in hand and liberating ourselves together.
Oh, absolutely. Shoulder to shoulder, unifying, and there is no other way. And in the past, when we've had leaders, self-appointed, self-anointed, which we're still seeing today, as you mentioned, these galactic influencers that position themselves as the leader of the universe or whatever. Like there's one out there that makes me die. A guy, he's always like, "Well, here are the galactic updates," and I'm like, "From who? From where? What are your sources? You know what I mean?" I just want to go over a couple of the points that you made and my own thinking and my own mind as it works or she works, and I will speak into the field what I decide as a free soul. My soul is not for sale like most people on the planet, but there are a few that bring false light. And as far as I'm concerned, what we're looking at in part is an organic human and a synthetic human. The organic human is me. I'm going to stay true. I'm not going to be implanted. I'm not going to be jabbed. I'm not going to go down that road. The synthetic human has the implants, takes the information, presents it as their own, positions themselves hierarchical, connects to a light source that we don't know necessarily if it's light or if it's dark. Synthetic human, of which I am not. The mentality, if you are not with me, you are against me. What the hell insane asylum conversation is that about? How ridiculous and cruel and aggressive and abusive is that to say to people who are trying to figure out who they are right now? Wow, what a leader! Also, we did not come from monkeys. The absolute atrocity of the Genesis stories that we have, so many of them, so many. Pick a religion, Hindus. I mean, and Shiva is not a bloody Anunnaki. Okie dokie. That is an insult to Shiva, according to the people that know and love. Oh my God, there's a text from Praveen Mohan that's come in. Now that man loves his Shiva. He's a Hindu monk. I love Praveen. He's speaking at my next conference. Anyway, apes. The ape story. All we have is schooling, told the minute we're born, this is what we're born into. This is the system that we're born into. We were not dumbass monkeys that one day got up. Now, I know we might have been tinkered about with, but I think we've been interfered with to derail us, to dehumanize us, taken over by a bunch of Muppets that present themselves as the Anunnaki, the ancient gods. They can all kiss my ass. I'm not buying it for a minute. I did for a few years. Sorry, really embarrassed about that. But now I've seen the truth, right? And this isn't about one silly woman. I couldn't be bothered. She's not important enough to hate. I have nothing to do with her or her information because she's lied in public about me. I've never said this way before. Sorry, it's with you. But anyway, there you go. Sometimes it just comes out. She lied in public about me. She made up massive, humongous stories about things that apparently I did to her. Lies. Now, her people love and adore her. So, of course, they believe everything she says. Again, false light presenting itself as truth. Now, because she lied about me and the imagined victimhood in her little mind, yes, I said her little mind, um, I wonder what else did she lie about? And so now I'm like, oh my gosh, I cannot be responsible for putting more lies into the field. So she's deleted and never speaking at an event again and causing so much pain. And the one common denominator that fell out with every other beautiful, brilliant speaker, that bird, that bird. So anyway, what happens then is the aggression and the rage from the false light element is the people who are so attached to that false light because it means something to them, for them, and without it, they don't know who they are, not strong enough to stand alone or question everything. But this leads me back to the man system, Lyra, the original place we're told. Humanity is rife in the whole of the universe and universes. We're not a brand new species on Earth. We weren't just an experiment from the beginning on this planet. And what I've been seeing is the terraforming, the spraying in the skies of another species trying to take over. They're going for the old people, they're going for the children, and in the middle, they're trying to genocide as many of us as they can. We still do not have the full truth about what this whole system is, other than, as you're telling the truth on, it is a copycat of the original God source, creator source. And here we are. I made notes as well, so many I can't even bloody read now. Planet our suit, the true biology. Okay, I'm going to leave it there. What do you think about what I've said? And push back because we have to have conversations without being terrified we're going to be dumped. What are your
Well,
thoughts?
that's just it. The cancel culture has to stop. And with this Anunnaki half truths and propaganda that's out there, in our evolution as a human species, when this invasion happened and this takeover happened, there were already advanced civilizations in existence. There were already advanced humans. So when they say that there's an expedition to Earth, that's not true. This was nuclear war. This was a takeover. They didn't discover anything. They stole it. They invaded it. This is a huge shift in the way the information has been presented to us. And so we need to understand that so we don't fall back into kind of like a hypnotic worship state of these beings, because they're not gods, they're engineers. And this is an installation of a false matrix inverted system that they put in place when there were already advanced souls and beings on the planet. And it reverse the density. And you're probably thinking, well, how can lower density beings take something down to a lower density? Well, they can do it with nuclear warfare. And again, this was a family dynasty, so there were lots of backdoors, and it's very complicated, but it happens. And that's what we're in today. And what we're seeing today is not this return of Anunnaki as saviors. The ones that are here helping are doing it because they're karmically entangled, and they really need to. Now, I think some of them are here to help for real and out of the goodness of their heart, but there's a lot of work they need to do to untangle themselves karmically. And what they're not sharing, and this is so important, because one part of this propaganda is all about bloodlines, and it's about royalty, and it's about them coming back as the saviors and the royals, the true genetic bloodlines. I'm going to tell you something. The next layer up, when we talk about really the prime creators of our reality system, the original system, they have fractaled themselves and they are incarnate walking the planet now. And they are teaching everyone that your soul transcends bloodlines. Your soul transcends royalty. Your soul transcends DNA. This is about the remembrance of who you are and the gnosis of the heart. All of this royalty stuff is crap. We need to get that. That's programming. We need to get that out of our mindset. And no one is better than another because of their bloodline. That's right. Or from a monarchy. We have to get rid of that.
Yeah, I love it. No, I love your passion. Go for it. This is righteous anger, at the very basic level, minimal, like passion. And we have to have passion. We have to be okay with saying, I do not believe what I have been told. I do not believe the generational tablets, the scrolls, the Enumera Elish, the Astrahasis, elements of it, all these different things. We can name 1,000 the Emerald tablets. We can say that. We can question everything, even if they hold the greatest truth. It's an individual journey to self, to soul, to independence, to free thinking. We all came back here to stand in that beautiful soul power that everyone has. That's why following the leader, oh, follow the leader. Simon says, wow. Why are you giving your lives away? People are dishonest with themselves. They're scared, but they don't want to be left behind. Oh, the big ship lollipop's going to land in a minute, and this person over here says she's the queen, and all her fans are going to go with her. Nope, she's dumping your ass too, mate. You are not going with her on the big ship lollipop. It's a lie. It's to gain followers. It's to make promises, they're never ever going to be collected or delivered because that person has no power. Him or her, whoever we're referring to, the false light leader. And it took me years to wake up to that. And that's okay. I'm okay. Devastating, painful, publicly humiliating, sad, devastating, really, really a lot of attacks and offenses. And I'm glad I'm still here kicking and breathing and continuing on my mission. I'm proud because when you stand in love and you stand in truth, my God, the chains come off. All the worry about what will they think, what will they say? No, everyone is in the same boat right now. Every soul is looking for truth and trying to free and remove themselves from the false matrix, right?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And, the dark side uses truth to gain your trust. And so that you give your consent away. And then before you realize it, oh my gosh, I'm going along with an agenda that doesn't make sense or that I don't really stand for. But by that time, a lot of people have already invested so much of themselves, they can't unwind themselves from it. They can't undo it. And with some of this false light, there's a lot of corrupt intel streams. A lot of people think they're connecting to a federation or to a council, and what they're really connecting to is an AI system, and it's a manipulation. So that's why you need to look at all of the 10 things I mentioned before. And some of them think they have a plan. Well, I'm going to tell you, there are a lot of false Nordic beings that are presenting themselves to people, giving them, throwing them off track, giving them plans like, oh, we're going to have this plan where your soul family arrives and they ascend, and there's everyone's soul family is going to come down at the same time. And, the only way that is ever going to happen is if we've already pulled ourselves up by the bootstraps as a humanity and presented ourselves as a unified species. That can't happen beforehand. Otherwise, that just goes against all intervention. So there's a lot of people touting or thinking that they're part of this plan that's actually coming from, it's my understanding, it's coming from a dark race in Aldebaran that's pretending to be false light, that's presenting themselves as false Nordic beings, but it's really a manipulation. And it's really controlled a lot of people, unfortunately, because they're going along with this narrative that is just going to fall apart. And we're seeing this play out on multiple stages. The thing is, the truth will always prevail, and any narratives that are not based in truth are going to collapse on themselves. And we're seeing this. And this is where everyone has to dig deep into their own integrity and look at the different agendas playing out on multiple stages, globally and galactically, and say, which is the one that is singing to my soul? Which is the one that is telling me how to liberate my soul to come up and out of the construct altogether, to be completely free, to remember the song of my soul and the essence of my eternal being? You don't need to go on a spaceship for that. You carry that with you all the time.
Exactly. Exactly.
So
Just to your point about the synthetic AI plugin, having a implant and saying the only way to connect to technologies, to communicate with ETs is through a synthetic implant. It's a lie. A lie. I know because I don't have an implant and I have had communication with beautiful beings. I mean, we're not sitting down and having a cup of tea, but neither's anybody else. Okay, so we've got to again remove the layer of fantasy and recognize what it is we are doing. The synthetic human or the organic human. That's a choice. And I always say to people, stop taking a side because there's truth and good on every side. But then there's an agenda on the dark side to control and coerce into the false light matrix that we know we live in. And the organic human, the freedom of the organic human, removing the implants, removing the agreements, not consenting anymore, tearing up the contracts, like being really real about who you are. It's not too late. They don't own your soul. You can step down and get back onto the reason why you came back, right? It's not difficult.
yeah, yeah, the end game for them is transhumanism. And it's like boiling a frog. So when you hear things, they're trying to get us comfortable with the idea of implants or Neuralink or things like that. And that is this slow assimilation into transhumanism. And this is where they want everything to be digitized, right? Even our currency and our identities. And, the meta universe is part of this. They want us creating our own digital avatars, and so that they can do a consciousness transference into this false world. And in my classes, I talk a lot about the creation of false realities and how this happens because we actually do it. We actually give them permission with our consciousness and our energy and our focus when we're participating in these things. We're creating it for them. They kind of lay out the structure, but we're the ones that fill it with our consciousness. So we have to be really, really aware of that. And that doesn't mean you have to cut everything out or not listen to certain people. Just use your filter of discernment, because there's threads of truth in almost everything. Even people who are complete disinformants are usually going to be telling you truth. The dark side is always going to share truth because they play by this karmic rule where they tell you what they're doing in some form or fashion, and then your silence or your compliance is the consent. And then they believe it's a karmic transference, so then they don't have to pay that debt. And that's essentially what's happening. And we're at this really critical time frame of humanity making the decision to go with a transhumanism agenda or to fall back into our own intuition, into the power of our soul. So that's why this is so important to understand. You don't want this assimilation into this transhumanism agenda. It's going to be your choice either way, but we need to put it out there so everyone has full disclosure on what they're making their decisions on.
Yeah. When people talk about the disclosure community, there's only a few thousand of us, right? I'm saying the ones that kind of know about you, know about me, and they're not very big, and some other speakers. And the beauty in that is that the negative damage isn't going to spread too far. But the fact is, there are a group of certain souls within this environment who are the change makers. And they're going to be brokenhearted too and thrashed around like they're in a shipwreck. And I get it. We all have to do that. And so they're the ones bringing the light. They're the ones standing up like you. You withdrew. I felt that. I felt that and I missed your presence. And I'm like, oh, wow, I've lost her. Like I've lost a lot of people. They've withdrawn from me. And I get it. I can be really outspoken and piss a lot of people off. I'm here to rattle your demons. And I love you all very, very much. Even the mudderfudders, that need a spanking and that I give a spank here and there, right? They're also going to grow. They're going to, I hope, I wish them healing. No one is important enough to hate. I wish them healing, I do, but I'm no longer muzzled. I'm no longer in fear of upsetting the great leaders. I don't care. You're the only other person I've heard so far say the Anunnaki are false gods, and you don't believe them. You and me so far. I'm sure there are others, and I'm sure that it will become something when people think about it, they give themselves confidence to stop kissing the asses of those who put themselves in charge and says, "We made you, we enhanced you, we developed you. Thanks to us." Yeah, I don't think so, mate. I don't think so. What I have noticed in a person recently, when the behavior changed in particular, when I looked at their soul and their spirit face to face, I saw reptilian energy. I'm not saying this person's a reptilian. I'm saying I saw reptilian, ancient energy in the body of someone. And I thought, wow, are all the Anunnaki? Is it all a reptilian baseline heritage? I don't know. Do you know the
Yeah,
origins?
you know, I first of all, I don't want to speak in any kind of absolutes. I said that up
Yeah.
front.
Yeah.
Only the dark side is going to speak in absolutes. So to paint a whole race, even the reptilians, as all evil or dark, that's not truth. Because every soul has their own sovereignty in their own journey, and there's a rebel in every family, even the dark ones. So, a lot of this traces back to Alpha Draconis. Quite honestly, that's where it goes back to, the original roots of this. And, with the serpent worship, that snake worship, and that representation of wisdom, that is the dark faction of the Anunnaki stamping their ground. And that's why you see that all over the Vatican, because the original symbol for wisdom was the dragon. And the dragons, believe it or not, were real. They were on our planet, and they were the original wisdom keepers. And I'm talking about primordial dragons. Dragons are reptilian, snakes are reptilian. Goes all the way back to Alpha Draconis. But there's positive and negative within each one of them. But the true primordial dragons that are the wisdom keepers of the creational codes, those are benevolent beings. Now they will provide duality. They provide duality experiences. One of the things we do as souls for our soul evolution is called descent initiation. This is when you go into an inverted program on purpose, and you read about this in the Gnostic text. It's called falling through the archonic spheres, and you have amnesia. And the goal is to remember your soul and work your way back up, right? So that is a real descent initiation. But the point I'm getting at is, I don't think we can paint any one group or race as all evil or dark. You have to look at it more on an individual basis, because I don't want to be included. Some of the things going on with humanity right now are really dark. Does that mean we're all consciously consenting to that? No, we don't. We want to be judged on an individual basis. We don't really want to be judged at all. But I can't say all Anunnaki are evil. I don't think that at all. I think there's a lot, those that we're seeing on the main stage are being manipulated. And I think they're being puppeteered. And I actually think a lot of the information they're getting and they're streaming into their technology communication systems is coming from the CIA.
The
I actually don't
CIA.
think, yeah, I actually
Yeah.
don't think it's coming from something galactic. I think it's appearing that way. And it's important to understand that this is a holographic projection system. And one of the things that implants can do, they can work as projectors. They can actually project false reality, have you have experiences in this system, in this immersion system, that are manipulations. So this is why implants are so dangerous. And to say that you need an implant to be in contact with ETs is an extremely dangerous statement to make. It's the opposite is true. You want to do this through your soul, and you want to do this through your heart space. So you don't want to do it through technology. I would say that that's very dangerous. Now, I know a lot of speakers out there use AI, and they say that they're getting a lot of really great information from AI. And I've seen it. Some of the information coming through really is. I don't use AI. I'm not comfortable with it because I know it can be manipulated so easily. Um, so I'm not, I don't want to say that all the information coming through technology is wrong. That's just, it depends on how you use it and it depends on how you discern it.
I'm really shocked that people trust the computer, which is AI. I'm shocked that people are getting spiritual or galactic information by asking a question in Chat GPT. It disturbs my mind. I don't understand it. I will have no part of it. A computer that's been created physically isn't going to tell me soul frequency truth as far as I'm concerned. That's my experience so far. I wanted to say something about the dragons. I always feel like, oh God, sometimes there's kind of a wishy-washy spiritual element. There's nothing New Age, nothing. New Age doesn't exist. It's an insulting term. An insulting term, the same as tinfoil hat, New Age, an insulting, rude term to create shame and guilt and embarrassment and stopping growth inside of a human. The age that we're in is the age we're in, and the ancient technology is the ancient technology and information. I think the original physical dragons are our dinosaurs.
Oh,
That's what I think.
I
And
think there's definitely a connection there.
yeah, and also the Tyrannosaurus Rex, right? His poor little arms. I mean, come on. You don't make someone that big with the jaw and the thighs and the body and the power and the rah and that. Sorry about my little arms. They weren't quite finished. Sorry. I always thought, oh no, I feel ashamed for him. It's like he's just not finished. Like his genetic experiment wasn't finished. What I think is that those little arms were basically the structure for holding wings. You know,
Interesting. I've never thought of it that way. When I think of dragons, I actually think of the most powerful creatures in all of creation, and I see them as being etheric and part of again the wisdom keepers of the original creation. That's not to say there aren't dark variations of that. There are. But again, I'm talking about more of a primordial element and a primordial emanation of the original creators that made this system and this universe. There's consciousness outside of our universe. We're in a containment system, so we have to think outside. And when those creators emanate in play in the universe, I see them as being dragon type of beings. And I know that might sound silly to a lot of people, and that's fine. I've been made fun of plenty for the information that I share, so it doesn't bother me. But there's plenty of evidence that there's been dragons here, and there's a reason it's part of the Chinese zodiac, and it's a reason that all our ancient teachings about energy, going back to qigong, they talk about the dragon and the dragon within. You know, it's important. And I have a whole class just on Tiamat and the dragon initiates and what that means and how that plays out and what that looks like. Um, so again, I'm summarizing a lot of big picture information into just a few sentences here today, but
yeah.
I hope it's been helpful.
Yeah, definitely. No, it's a lot. And the thing is, we've got to have these conversations and just take everything apart. It's our duty and it's our right. It's our birth right. And we don't have to do it online. We can do it quietly, sit in circles, gather friends on a group Zoom, and just take apart information. Don't have a leader dictating. Don't have a leader that you're terrified of upsetting if you go against his or her information, because that is a dominance, that is a control, that is a false light system. As we said, we got to be able to feel free to say whatever we like, and not setting out to destroy, not setting out to corrupt, not setting out to take down a particular individual, because we're all on our journey, but definitely shine the light on false light or what is perceived as false light. I mean, a lot of people, they go full circle. They come in, they remove themselves from energy as you did, and go into a quiet, more isolated expression where you're building your work and writing your book and creating the energy to bring then to the masses, to create your classes, because people are hungry, and then we take everything we get and what resonates we sit with. What doesn't we can put to the side, because sometimes the stuff we put to the side we just weren't ready for. And then it comes back in later when we're able to absorb it, right?
Oh my gosh, you're so right. I mean, think about that. That's what I say all the time. Just come with an open mind and take what you want. But I wouldn't close the door on everything, because 2 years from now, you might be like, oh my God, that resonates now. I see it. Look at where we were as a collective before COVID. People weren't awake yet. COVID, the crown of the coronavirus was that it woke so many people up. And so
Mm.
now we're in a whole different world, and we've got all this alternative media and so much truth coming out. And people are exploring things that they never would have believed before, ever. And now we have the Epstein files out, and now we're all of us that have been saying these things for years. It's like, okay, it's out there now. There's no more hiding. There are going to be some people that no matter what evidence you show them, they're not going to believe and they're not going to understand. And so you just let that go. You put out there what you know and what you want to contribute, and then you have to let go, because it's everyone's. You can't force truth on anyone. You can't force anything on anyone. You just share, and then you let go, and you stay within your integrity. In this age of deception, integrity is everything. That's all you have at the end of the day. So speak your truth, be grounded in your heart space, and that's really the key to navigating all of this chaos.
Yeah, that's amazing. Oh my gosh. So many things to say, and I'm so grateful to you. And it's such a wonderful way to, express and invite people again themselves to, really look at the Anunnaki who have presented themselves as the gods that we should be grateful for upgrading our DNA, which I feel is the opposite. And again, this is not, it is so serious. There's no way that I would waste my time going against a single individual just because we fell out. Like, get over yourself. You're not that important. Truth is what matters. The true galactic history, why we're here, what the false matrix actually is, and how we remove ourselves from it. Looking at the dangers of them trying to co-opt us into synthetic, but for us to be organic. These are our beautiful, angelic, harmonic birthrights. Again, they're trying to terraform the planet. They're harming the children, taking out the elders, and corrupting and genocide those in between. This is what's important, not individual personalities. And if people can't draw from the gossip, they got some healing to do. I mean, God knows I'm working on myself every day, all of the time, and still stuffing up here and there. And that's okay. That's okay. I think it's okay to be honest and vulnerable and loving and passionate and angry and all of those things. And when you mess up, you own it. You don't go out deliberately trying to hurt or harm people. You don't do that. We're not here to harm. I'm not here to harm. I'm here to bring people together, to bring the harmonic of truth into the field that everyone can take a piece of and, heal themselves. Now, tell us again, as a walk-in, what are you here to do? And are there other walk-ins that you connect with?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. As a walk-in, walk-ins are so mission driven. And so I share all my information in my classes. I've got a huge library of information. So I've been just sharing that about the truth of our soul and about the truth of who we are. And the overall purpose of this is to end the suffering. It's really to end the suffering that we've been through, because once we know the truth, we can really start to heal, and it's about healing. And so that's why I have a healing practice and I do the teachings. And again, it's not about me. It's just about me putting the information forward and sharing my piece. And I'm not saying that I know it all. I just bring forward what I do know, and I encourage other people to bring their pieces forward, because everyone's meant to play a role here. um, Now I have connected with other walk-ins, and everyone has a different experience with it. um, it's really interesting, and I'm having this human experience just like everyone else. So I'm learning every day as well. I love learning. I love I consider myself a forever student. So this is the evolution of our souls and our evolution as a race. And we're meant to do this, like I said earlier, hand in hand. And not one person is better than another. I'm no better than anyone else just because I walked in. I just came in a different way. And, we know we're going to be persecuted, and we know we're going to be made fun of, and we know that we're going to be attacked when we walk in and when we come with missions like everyone that's waking up right now and bringing truth forward. So when someone's playing a victim about it, that's a really big red flag, because we get training before we come in here, and we've done this before, and we've come in and incarnated into these dark matrix false light systems to bust them up from the inside out. It's not the first time we've done this, and we know we're going to get attacked. We know we're going to have some isolation, and we know we're going to be persecuted for a lot of reasons, and we know we're going to be put in some really dangerous situations, but you get through it, and you heal. And then what you do when you heal from it is you teach other people how to heal from it. And then you help everyone else get through it. And you hold the light, you hold the torch, you hold that stability in that ground for other people to go through their transformative process. We had to all wake up in waves. We couldn't wake up all at the same time, because when you wake up and you go through that dark night of the soul and you realize the truth about our reality system, it shatters everything, right? So some of us had to be holding that ground to allow other people to heal. One of the things I think is so important in my healing practice is to teach it so that you don't need me. Everything I do, everyone can do, right? It's just a matter of we just forget. We're under amnesia. So it's about sparking that remembrance in everyone. And remembrance, again, is different than memory. People get worried, like, I don't have my memories. You don't really need your memories. Memories can actually be manipulated and they can be implanted. What you need is the remembrance. The remembrance comes from the heart. The memories come from the mind. You need the remembrance of your eternal nature as a soul being, as a soul that existed before humans were even created, as a soul that is part of the prime creators of the whole reality system in general. So we all have a part of that. And that's what's reawakening. That's what's being rekindled and relit in humanity today.
It's everything you said there is so absolutely crucial. And the different memories and remembrance in particular. I had a memory and I did question it over the years because I would say, did I make that up to fit? Like really questioning. And I was so concerned about this particular memory with an extraterrestrial because I've had several over many years, many different kinds of ETs, really weird looking ones as well. And this one particular one, it really bothered me a lot. So what I did, I asked Tony Rodriguez and his very advanced remote viewing group. Obviously, I just tell him, I said, this is what I think I remember. I don't know. I'm very disturbed that this might have been an implanted memory, a screen memory, a holographic memory, a dreamtime technology insertion. And so he obviously didn't say a word. He said, have a look at this number. And it did not come back as I had suspected. So now
Hmm.
I'm considering they are going to do it again on a different level, but um, well, probably not now I've bloody mentioned it, come to think of it, but they did not see the ET that I, yeah. So now, and the thing is, it's okay. It's all right for people. I've talked about this particular interaction for years, you know, but I have the courage to say that may not have been a true memory. That may have been me being manipulated, not me lying, not me making anything up. What were you going to say?
I understand everything that you're saying, and this is where the implanted memories and the artificial telepathy that's coming through is so dangerous, and the voice to skull, because it's really hard to tell what's real and what's not. And there's a lot of people who are sharing what they believe to be real. They're not lying about their experiences. The problem is their experiences have been implanted in some way, or they've been manipulated in some way. And I experienced some of the way this technology works. When I was sharing those 10 reasons or those 10 signs to look for with benevolent contact versus manipulation, it's because I've experienced them myself. And it's almost
Mm.
embarrassing when you have it happen. It feels like a violation because it feels real in the moment. And I can see where people fall for that. I think they're victim. It's a victimization, is what happens. I mean, you have to recover from it, but you're being targeted in a way, and it's meant to throw you off course, and it's designed for dark purposes, and it's designed to be a manipulation. So a lot of people out there, it's not really fair to attack them as liars. We don't want to do that. They're actually expressing something that really happened to them. It's just that it's probably technology from the CIA or three-letter agencies or from my labs.
Hmm. Yeah, it's so sad, isn't it? When, people are so sweet and they mean so well, and when you truly do believe that something has happened and you're so earnest and ardent and passionate and desperately wanting to prove, and yet you could have actually had a implanted technology-based holographic horror, I mean, it is what it is. And like I say, if I can admit it, on camera here, I'm okay with that. I'm okay if, that was something that I believed to be true and it's turning out that it probably wasn't. But I did not lie. And that's the key. And I say that so often. I go, I am not a liar. I'm a human doing my best and standing in my mission and bringing great people together for disclosure, but like everyone else out there, we get stuff wrong sometimes, and it's all right. There's got to be more forgiveness of self. There has to be. There's got to be more kindness. There's got to be people looking in the mirror and loving the face that looks back at them and saying to that person, you have survived so much. I love you. I respect you. And talking to that person in the mirror as if they're your best friend. Someone you love, someone you need to nurture and honor. It would change. I spoke to an amazing healer in the Philippines today, and he was saying the same thing, like similar, like you gotta take care of yourself. You gotta love yourself. That's your duty. He said, in one day, if the whole world raised the frequency of love for self in one day, the whole world would change. The whole system would come down. It could never sustain and hold up if we just raise that inner organic, like love frequency that we possess, right?
Yeah, that healthy self-love. And you don't have to prove yourself to anyone. When you live with integrity, it doesn't matter if you're speaking to 2 people or 2 million people. You're not doing it for those reasons. You're doing it because that's how you live. It's a state of being. So you don't even have to think about it and you don't have to worry about it. The problem is people get pulled into these narratives and then they start fighting each other. And then you see, well, that divisiveness, that divide and conquer, that's all a manipulation. That's the deep state's favorite tactic, right? Divide and conquer and distract with information that's not relevant. And the best assets for the deep state don't know that they're assets for the deep state. They
Yeah.
think fighting the deep state, and the people saying there's no negative ETs are being controlled by negative ETs.
Oh
So
my
you have
God,
to be really careful with
oh
this.
my God, that's so sad. It's so sad. Oh yeah, Stephen Greer is a classic for saying there are no negativities. Of course there are, Stephen, you muppet, bloody hell. We all know that. He must know. I mean, I reckon he knows. He can't be that, swept along if he's seen how devastating and how dark the men are and women that work in these agencies and the military pretending to be ETs, pretending to, anyway, whatever. He's got to know. You got to know on some level. I used to get mad at, bless him, Nick Pope, who just died. I found that so sad. I find it so sad. He got so sick so quick and died so quickly. But I used to think to myself, he's holding back information. He's got to be. He's got to be. But everyone that I know says he's a bit like me, a little bit Asperger's, a little bit autistic, a little bit label here, label there, and that he really was a genuinely good soul and he was doing the best he could. And, so he gets that grace, from everybody. But it seems that people are, again, he would go, Danny, calm down, it's not time yet. I'm like, no, it is time. It is go time. The world is ready. Stop insulting my brothers and my sisters, with your bollocks and telling us that we're not ready. How rude. I read a statistic or saw one the other day. We only need something like 18% of the global mass. 18%. I mean, are we not past that yet? Surely we're past that. There's so many, 7 out of 10 of us are watching broadcasts like this. End of
Yeah.
story. Right? We're there. We're there.
Yeah, we're there. I think from my perspective, I think that there needed to be kind of like a clearing out of some of the galactic nonsense and disinformation agenda that was happening. And I think what we're going to see is more of a bottom up grassroots perspective where those of us who have been doing the work, like really doing the shadow work and really digging into the truth of our souls and healing our relationships on our family levels and with our friends and creating, a strong foundation for ourselves. I think you're going to see more people rising up, like
Definitely.
everyday people, not special,
Yes.
galactic things, every like day human beings that have done the work, that are grounded in reality, that are anchored in their heart space. They're going to come forward because we are the intervention. It's not up there, it's down here. We are the boots on the ground for this, and we're all being activated, and now is the time for this. I see like a whole nother wave of activation happening, and people remembering their torch and bringing it forward because everyone has a piece of this, and it looks different for everyone. And I see people starting to get their confidence with this. And I think when they remember, oh my God, I'm original prime creator. Like I have this within me. I know how to render reality. I have it built within my system. I'm just in a state of amnesia. I think some of the things that we're talking about today are going to help activate and trigger people in that remembrance. And that's what it's all about. That's where all the power is.
Oh my God, it's so true. And like you say, everyday people, which is well, everybody, it's like lately, the three women have come to my mind. It's just lovely girls, lovely women, like on Facebook or in my live chat, and the one is called Karen Ann, one is called Nikki Chapotsky. Sorry, Nikki, forgot your last name. And there's a third one, Sarah Keller. And then I've been drawn to them, guided to look at them, feel them. And I'm like, oh my God, these women have just got this body of knowledge that's so fascinating. And they've never been out there. Well, one has, but the other two, they haven't been out there. They're ready now. And this is all happening. We're coming online. Our signature frequency is getting fired up. We got stuff to say. It doesn't mean that I can, bring every single person on my channel. I try, but that's why I have my conferences so we can all get together. We can all commune. We can all find each other. Not everyone's going to get to speak on YouTube, and that's all right too. You really put yourself in the firing line when you're on YouTube, and you really are at risk of, all kinds of things. So it takes a certain person to be able to manage that, because people get very burnt out and very, affected by things that other people say about them. But I'm just making the point that you said everyone, every normal person, we don't need these galactic leaders, these ambassadors of this and that. Who cares? It's not a hierarchical system. It doesn't work. It never worked. It never will. Humanity, this planet does not run. Her frequency energy, her pulse is everyone together, everyone showing up, everyone moving in tandem for the greater good from the youngest child to the oldest adult and the animals in between. I truly believe that.
Yeah, I see it more as an ecosystem than a spiritual hierarchy, right? It's everyone's got a role and they're all different and we're all meant to work together. And your role is not to sit back and eat popcorn. It is to, remember who you are and what you want to bring forward. And so many people are like, well, I don't know what that is. Well, it's going to start with something that you love. It's always going to be about what you love doing. So, and then people say, I don't know what I love doing because they've been so assimilated into this false matrix system and we've been so programmed and so on survival mode, so on fight or flight, especially with this debt slavery system and the monetary system. And you have to work and there's bills and there's this and that. So you totally get distracted and you get pulled back from who you truly are and what you truly love. And when you start to pull back those layers and rediscover yourself, you might be surprised as to what you really love and what really sings to your soul. And that's where you're going to find your piece of the puzzle, is with what you really love doing. And it doesn't mean you have to be on YouTube, and it doesn't mean you have to be like up on a podium giving speeches. It doesn't mean that at all. It's going to look completely different for everyone.
Totally. And some people are terrible speakers. Some people are really boring. Oh God, I mean, I worry about me. I'm like, oh, am I going to bore the arse of everybody? I'm so sorry. I hope that wasn't too boring. But honestly, some people are not destined to be speakers, and even some that think they are the greatest in the world. Honey, watch yourself. Like, watch yourself, stop surrounding yourself by people who are kissing your bottom because you're very dull, my love, very dull. I know that's terrible, but we have to tell the truth again so people can look in the mirror and go, I think I need to like rein myself in a bit, or maybe not be doing that. Maybe write a book about it, create some classes, you know what I mean? Team up with someone else who's a better speaker and presenter than you. There's lots of different ways we can get our talents and skills out, right?
You're so right. And we have to keep our sense of humor. I'm the first one to like laugh at myself. I think it's important. I think it's important not to get too serious with everything. Laughter is the best medicine, and we've got to just, laugh sometimes, even when it's at ourselves. It's
Always.
so important.
Honestly, I feel like that's one of the biggest traces of a narcissist. If you cannot laugh at yourself, if you cannot make an ass of yourself, then we cannot be friends. So I'm concerned because I'm doing it all the time. I bring myself up, I make myself the joke because sometimes I am the joke, and that's okay too. Yeah, I'm very suspicious of people that don't don't can't be wrong, don't make fun of themselves. I'm like, why? Get over yourself. Get over yourself. Come on, have a laugh. Have a laugh, mate. Anyway, this has been brilliant. It's been absolutely lovely to see you again and just be in your frequency and talk about being a walk-in, your classes, your lessons, why you withdrew, why you've come back into the field. How many people are so drawn to you? Alex Collier just loves you.
Well, he uh, was a big influence for me in my own journey, and getting the courage to speak out. And I actually write about that in the book because I shared some of my information with Alex back in 2021 with some of my contact, and he gave me some advice about how to approach coming forward, and then I ended up halting everything, like I said, because I was going to get steamrolled, and so I just held back, and it didn't, at that point, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter when you're really embedded in your mission. It doesn't. If it comes forward, great. If not, I know that I'm being the best version of myself that I can be. Some days are better than others, but I live in truth and transparency, and that's what it's all about. That's all that matters.
Mm.
And if I'm able to help people, that's the goal. And the suffering is to answer questions, it's to provide healing. But I can't control that. I can't control what people are able to receive. And I'm not going to force myself on anyone or any kind of information down anyone's throats. It's up to everyone else to decide. I just put it out there. This is about freedom. It's about liberation. And so yeah, I'm really glad that we reconnected, and congratulations on your conference coming up. I mean, oh my gosh, you have like legendary speakers. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, legends. Billy Carson, David Icke, Kathy O'Brien, Max Lowen, JP, Tony Rodriguez, Guy Anderson for Tataria, The Rising. It's like the rising of Lemuria again, the rising of the Tartarian or the Siberian information. It is absolutely something to behold. Nikki Allen is coming. So David Icke, Kathy O'Brien, Tony Rodriguez, Max Lowe, and JP, Danny Henderson, Billy Carson, Praveen Mohan, and the Ancient Technology, and Guy Anderson and Nikki Allen. I'm not creating, I've hired a team to recreate my website. It's coming out in a few days. I can't wait. I'm so excited. We've just had this massive kind of upgrade in what the conference is, Galactic Spiritual Informers. I mean, the core, the very first one you came to, the core will always be there. It's the great speakers. It's all the interactions with the beautiful audience. It's the audience coming together. And over the years, we got more interactive with the audience. So now we'll have the audience share their beautiful stories, their testimonies. And there are marriages and there are relationships and there are great friendship groups globally, with these people. They're meeting across the world, they're meeting in WhatsApp groups, and they've found a way to raise themselves up and keep on their journeys despite having families and partners that don't believe a word what they say. It's just so great. Galactic Spiritual Informers. It's just the greatest conference on the entire planet, as far as I'm concerned. For the love and the truth and the connection, to everything truth on and off planet. So thank you, Katie. Now tell the people, tell the lovely people watching, how can we get hold of you? Tell us the name of your book again and what you're generally doing. And you mentioned something's coming up 24th of April. Tell us about that, please.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the book is Remember Your Torch, and you can get it on my website at earthbishop.com. It's on Amazon too. Um, and the classes you can find on my website under Sacred Mysteries Monthly. If you sign up to join, you get access to the full library, and we have a private chat. It's a great community of open-minded and open-hearted people. And there's an energy healing in every class as well. So I really, if you are interested in some of the information I touched on today, I go into much more detail, of course, in all of those classes. So you can find everything on earthbishop.com. And the class I'm teaching this month is all about sacred union and why it's important to rekindle our sexual energy in a sacred way right now, because that's the energy they harvest and they take it from us in ritual abuse. And then it's also our culture of hypersexualization. That's a huge inversion. And so I'm going to be sharing information on all of this on April, I believe it's the 14th. It's next Tuesday, whenever that is. So anyways, you can sign up for that on my website as well. That's part of the Sacred Mysteries monthly classes.
Wonderful. So earthbishop.com. How easy is that? Earthbishop.com for everything. Well, again, thank you, Katie Bishop, so much. And I can't wait to see how things go from this broadcast. And I'm sure you'll be back. I'm sure people will have questions and you want to come back and share more on the true reality and the nature of our beingness and where we live. And thank you again. Ah, and to the audience, thank you so much for being here. I know that this is such a wonderful time of connecting to yourself, most importantly, going other places, meeting people like Katie who are bringing other information. Giving yourself permission is the biggest thing, I think, the key takeaway from this particular broadcast. Give yourself permission to question everything and don't worry about offending anyone, because if they are of the love and the light, they won't care. They'll congratulate, they'll encourage you. If they are of the false light, they won't like it. If you are not with me, you are against me. Ba-boom. So watch yourselves out there. Sending love from my heart to yours, and I'll see you soon. Thanks, Katie.